Oblivion Express is the map where we have to destroy trains. They come in from the west, mainly along 2 tracks, and we have to destroy 9 of them to win the game. If we miss more than 1 train on brutal difficulty, we lose the game. Your units deal their damage back to themselves when they attack. Random nukes and hybrid nukes are also in the game.
Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur, people say like the 100 biomass units are great against double edge because you actually heal yourself, which is true. But with going nuclear active, farming is significantly more difficult in the early game. So it's harder to get your early Brutalisk online. Once you have a Brutalist, they generally don't kill themselves because of the symbiote. And if they're starting to hurt themselves, you just have the Brutalist walk around a little. So the symbiotes continue doing damage and
Yes.
they don't attack. The going nuclear part makes it just the early game much more difficult and slow. And you don't want to use like Toxic Nest to kill the first train. Also, like, well, this is true for most commanders, but if you lose stuff to a nuke, you're gonna have a hard time getting back.
Yes.
I would suggest just getting 1 Brutalisk and then getting 3 Leviathans and all air units.
All
so that
air.
you can, all air. Just Guardians because they have longer range.
Yes.
Guardians, they don't deal too much damage and they stay far away from hybrids. Hybrids that suddenly pop out sometimes.
Yes.
I put Abathur in B.
How about you, Sticksbender?
So I would say I question why we don't use P1 here for double-edged, because here's the thing. This map is actually pretty easy for P1 Abathur, I find, for the simple reason that
they clump up.
The start is very slow, and when the 4-minute wave finally comes, it's got a decent chunk of biomass. The first train can be handled by just toxic nests, and like 3 spine crawlers is overkill already to deal with the first train. So you do have to worry about nuke rain for this, but if what you do is you place toxic nests in front of the very front of the train, right like in front of it after you've cleared out the defenders, so as it's going around that area above your main base, you'll be able to take out the train basically entirely of toxic nests despite nuke rain. With 3 spine crawlers to handle the first wave, clearing rocks, and then handle the first train, all the escort for that first train, that'll get you enough biomass to get enough roaches rolling with P1 to be able to start working from there and getting Mutalisks.
That sounds painful.
With P1, it doesn't matter how much dies. Because, well, it kind of matters. You can run out of money, but the biomass is conserved.
Yes.
100% of biomass is dropped on the floor on death with P1, which means what you can do is you could just throw a mass of roaches at the problem, and you'll be able to just be okay if they die. But the thing is, the high biomass roaches won't die until the mid game, because the early game, A1 has a really hard time overpowering those early roaches, especially with double-edged healing those roaches, because not only do you get the fact that double-edged, when they damage themselves with the biomass, they'll negate the damage due to the lifesteal from biomass, and then they'll still heal back at a rate of 10 hit points per second, the amount of damage they dealt. So basically, you're adding 10 hit points per second of health regen on the roaches. But also, with 125 biomass, now you have 125% life leech, which means when you deal damage, the double-edged actually means that your life leech increases because you deal damage and then heal yourself for 125% of the damage you dealt to yourself. So as a result, those few high biomass roaches in the early game are going to be virtually invincible as long as they are shooting something. So against an air comp, you might need to add spore crawlers if you can't get your mutas out fast enough. But for the most part, it should just be you make a couple spine crawlers early on. You rely on those spine crawlers. You can make more than 3 if you really want to be really safe, but a couple spine crawlers and toxic nests to handle the first wave, the first train, and expanding. And you want to fast expand with P1. And then after that, you should just be able to just mass roaches and mutas. And all you have to do is make sure you're protecting your mutalists. The roaches are 100% expendable. They're a mineral dump.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you protect your Mutalisks. Whenever you're facing big hybrid, what you do is you just throw the roaches at them and then pull the Mutalisks back. And you don't care how many roaches die. You just care as long as you keep the Mutalisks alive, you're happy.
But I do care how many
So-
roaches because, resources are finite, but I digress.
Resources are finite, but you kind of don't, because the reality is what you're going to find by the time you're getting to later in the game when there's lots of big hybrid is you're going to be sitting on like no gas and 4,000 minerals.
That makes
So
sense.
you don't really care how many roaches die. You kind of care, but you also don't care because the roaches are very expendable. They're not infinitely expendable, but they're very
Yes.
expendable. So
They're not
I would think that
Stukov
P1
expendable.
Abathur would be. I think that P1 Abathur would be an A candidate.
What do you think, Sticksbender? Or Twotuuu?
I don't think the spine crawlers can't be used to expand. They'll kill themselves.
I do have to remember
spine
the mechanics in
crawlers
this case.
can't kill a train. They'll kill themselves.
The spine crawlers don't have to kill the train though. The spine crawlers are to kill the defenders of the train. The toxic nest kill the train.
The
Wait,
toxic
spine
nest,
crawlers?
like, there's a quite an element of luck to not get nuked by
Yeah.
the like when you're placing the nests. If the train's not walking by, or like if it gets nuked sometime like while you're placing the nets, then that's
Just bad
you're
luck.
not going to kill a train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is,
So-
without nukes, the toxic nets are enough to solo the train if it has just die and diffusion and barrier on it. The toxic nest can still solo it. So we can lose a lot of toxic nests to nukes and still have enough left over to kill the train.
I don't want to use.
you're
So
gonna use-
I really don't think you need an early brutalist here. Basically, is what I'm saying.
But you're going to use toxic nests to not get biomass and instead just kill a train.
Yeah, because as you said, it's gonna be really hard and awkward to farm biomass, pull enemies out of the base, and this way if you're just working with the biomass that comes from waves, the thing is that you can get plenty of biomass from the waves if you're not losing any of it because of P1.
I'm kind of not sold on it. It seems like a lot of work for you. It's a lot of work, and you're still RNG bound. You
The whole thing
kinda
is a
hope
lot less
that-
work than getting one Brutalist out. That's all I'll say. The whole entire early game combined is less work than just getting out the first Brutalist if you're not using P1.
If you use the usual 22-8 split for toxic nests, you need 23 of them to kill the train. It's 4,200 HP, right? The first
So-
train.
Firstly, the toxic nests can technically detonate between the carts, and they will sometimes do that. They have a pretty big blast radius, so a good chunk of them are going to detonate between carts. The second thing is, if the nest has a 50% chance of re-detonating after the first detonation, and if it rearms itself, it's invulnerable while rearming, so it can't get nuked anymore while it's rearming. Once it detonates the first time, it is now nuke immune. So if it detonates on a front cart of the train, then it will detonate once, and then has a 50% chance to detonate again, and then a 50% chance to detonate again. And if you add all those 50% up, on average, what that means is that your average comes out to 2 detonations per toxic nest that actually manages to get to the first detonation. Plus the fact that they're going to be a good chunk of them hitting double, basically you're only going to need like 8 to 10 nests to actually manage to blow up on the train, and that'll kill the train.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of you need RNG to work in your favor.
You get a lot more than 10 nests over the course of the train running its course.
That's true.
Plus you can if you have toxic nest charges built up, then as long as you aren't dumping them all at once all in the same spot and then getting unlucky because they all get nuked.
Oh, most
you'll
people
be
will do
fine.
that. Most people will do that.
If you do dump them all on the same spot, there's a decent chance with structure build time making them arm pretty quickly that they don't get nuked, in which case you're completely fine. And if you don't do that, if you're careful about just like you just put down a few nests, scatter them along in front of the train, then you should find that you'll have plenty of nests. Like I really think there's like overkill enough amount of nests that it should be fine.
I'd just rather rely on my ally than do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically giving instructions for how Abathur would be able to solo the first train. So
on the first prestige.
on the first prestige, yeah.
I get it. I get it. You can do it, but I'm not sure I'd give that strategy an A. It doesn't sound like an A, kind of. What do you think, Twotuuu?
I'm okay with B, I suppose.
Yeah, I think B is yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like because my current A's just are much easier and stronger than that.
My biggest reason for wanting to give Abathur an A is because basically this early game, I'm justifying that this early game isn't nearly as bad as I think that Twotuuu would try to make out his early game is. And then if you're P1, once you make it to mid game, you have just won. Like the game just plays itself from there.
Unless you
pretty
get
much.
nuked.
Unless you face check a nuke, you have basically won from there.
Hmm.
And even if you do face check a nuke, if you are on the outer edge of the blast radius, your Mutalisks will actually have so many hit points that they can survive that. They won't be happy about it, but they can survive being on the outer
Wow.
radius of the nuke.
It's kind of crazy thinking about Mutalisks that can tank a nuke. That's insane.
Yeah, Abathur makes his Mutas tanky.
That's insane. I'm still not convinced he's A though. Maybe we'll get back to it after everyone's been discussed. We'll see if A still sounds fair. I personally don't think the first prestige is A, and that strategy at least it can work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying yes, you can do it, but I'm not gonna give that strategy an A personally. What do you think, Twotuuu? Are you gonna give that strategy an A?
I'm gonna try it, but I don't think it's that good.
If
I
it
don't
works,
know how to lie.
do you think you'll give it an A?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm
like,
okay. I'm okay sticking him at B.
I don't deny.
I just think I just basically my argument just comes down to I think Abathur is going to be really strong past the early game, but if you're worried about the early game, then it's very much doable. The question is how much like technical complexity is there in surviving the early game.
Besides, B's not a bad tier. It's it's above. It's high average. It's high average. It's above average. It's pretty good. It's just not A.
By the way, Twotuuu sounds very muffled.
Yeah, I think he's. You can cut this part out, Zeus.
Yeah.
Without prestige, I think it's the same, right? Still B.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take him in B. Guys, this is the end of the clip. I will link in the description the rest of the tier list, so do watch that. I will see you guys next time.